At this point, I want to talk in general terms about what we can assume life was like for the Israelis 3,500 years ago. And we can glean that by the rules that they're making. Think about this for a second. If we have rules today, no speeding on the highway, why is that rule there? It didn't used to exist. Even when highways first came about, it didn't exist. It only came about later as the need for it came about, as people are speeding and it's dangerous, and we need to make rules and laws that everybody exists within so that we can coexist happily without hurting and killing each other. So rules and laws exist to protect humanity, to protect lives, safety, and property. That's basically it. And you stay within a certain framework, a structure. We fit. We're a society. You don't get to act any way you want to. To exist here, you must fit within these rules. That is necessary in every society, regardless of where you are on the planet. Now let's just talk for a little bit loosely about rules that appear in the Bible. I'm not going to look them up and post the exact verses. We know what they are. Let's just talk about a couple of them, though. There's a bunch of verses that appear in Leviticus that are incredibly draconian. Okay, listen to this rule. If you get married, you're a male, you're a man, and you find out on your wedding night that your wife is not a virgin, you're to take her to her father's doorstep and stone her to death. That is their rule. There's another one that says, don't allow a crippled person or a deformed individual to come to the altar and leave a gift. What kind of life are they living back then? What kind of people are these? You know, in modern times over the years, I've from time to time caught articles of somewhere in the Middle East where, in places that are really not far along in their evolution of society, where people can still be stoned in the streets, a woman stoned in the streets, or circumcised for its mutilation. And you think, how horrific. Then you read the Bible and go, that's what the Jews were doing. Yeah. They're very primitive people. Of course, language was well available at that time, but reading and writing in schools, education was not. So the vast majority of the people could not read, could not write, had no education. And now, because life is changing on the planet, we have emerged from our hunter-gatherer beginnings. We now have agriculture. We have plenty of food. We have people that don't have anything to do. They don't have land. They don't have jobs. That kind of a structure isn't in place yet. What are people doing? Stoning each other and, who knows what. Same thing that happens today incredibly prevalently, I have no doubt. We hear about it whenever the few times somebody goes to jail over whatever abuses they're doing to somebody. Back then, I'm sure it was just normal stuff. Imagine being 3,500 years ago, being a woman and having your husband beat you. Who are you going to go tell? Life is not the same. We need a structure. We take it for granted that it's in place now, but back then it wasn't. I see wild people that need control, need structure, and they need something that's going to fit and dovetail in with the human psyche. So this template is made that actually is based on the human life, how we come about and how we heal and all of that, and that is what Judaism is based upon. However, they're using analogous terms for their culture that, like anybody, it puts us as the chosen ones. Yeah, we're a bunch of animals stoning our wives on our father's doorstep. We're God's people. Really? What the hell? Do people think? What kind of a God is that? Okay, that's just humans being humans. All right, so they're given rules and they're given structure, and those are the rules they are given. They are told from their Bible. That is what they are doing in their day. We've got most of that eliminated, don't we? The only thing that's still in place comes from all of the massive amounts of people who have had childhood sexual play issues that now they have some sort of issues with that they can't deal with. So instead they put on camouflage and masks and go hate everybody with their shame. With their shame. That's the only thing that's still in place. We can see that. Nobody's, that nobody's taking their wives to their father's doorsteps and stoning them anymore, at least not in this country. We no longer prohibit people who are crippled or ill to come and worship or come to the church. We eat shellfish. We've let that go, most of it, except for where the shame and the fear is. At any rate, this religion is word of mouth, and it is what is going to guide and help mentally manage this group of people that are stoning each other in the streets. We actually have records in the Bible, don't we, that during Jesus' time that was still happening. He had to step in and prevent that from happening 1,500 years later. Well, there you have it. There's some primitive stuff back there with people doing things. But here's something different. Again, there's not a structure in place like we have. Imagine that you're just isolated out in the desert someplace, and you don't know anything, but you are suddenly taught this thing it's got things that are quality for you. It allows you to feel like you are the best. It plays on your ego. It gives you control. It also, at the same time, unbeknownst to you, is creating, there's a big brother. Somebody's watching you, and this somebody watching you is also the judge and the jury. And all of these are being built into the psyche of the person at that time that's how you need to control people. That's a damn good way to control people 3,500 years ago. Today, what the hell are we doing? Why can't we see that? The template is there. I think long ago obviously people knew this. It's very prevalent. I wanted to say this about the religion, though. That's the thing in Genesis, that when we go through and I look for the template, there's parts where I find a lot of extraneous things in there that I try to figure out. And I think there's a point where I go, you know what? Those are not part of the template. Those are part of the ark. Those are part of the carrying case. They don't fit in the psyche. They do other things. Actually, they do, but the analogs are difficult. The crippled man don't allow the crippled man come to the altar to leave a gift. So I don't think we know the full implications, but I know back then, I'm sure there were crippled people. But there was also leprosy and other diseases. And there's probably some measure of keeping people away, keeping distance somehow, clean, unclean. They haven't developed medically very much. So they look at it in very primitive ways. In Jesus' verses, there's one that says, if you come to the altar to leave a gift, and you remember that you have aught against your brother, set your gift down and go resolve the aught first, then come back and give your gift, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. So in that idea, what we're doing, if we play it out in the psyche, if we mirror it, we are the ones that if we're conceptually, what is happening? What is the concept? If I'm at the altar giving a gift, what do I want? God's good graces. Remember at the end, your Father who sees in secret rewards in secret. I'm at the altar because that's what I want. I want God's good graces. And while I'm there, I remember that I've got issues in my head. It's not just aught against my brother at that moment. I told them I'm sorry. It's aught against all the other things that you carry. It's deep. If you want good graces and you're carrying that stuff, you're not going to get good graces. It's telling you to do that. In spiritual terms, the man is the consciousness. What is a crippled man? A crippled man is a broken consciousness. And if you go to the altar, you shouldn't be giving a gift. It's like a primitive version if you look at it that way. It's trying to put that analog in there. I'd have to look at the verse more. There are comparisons in there where it shows up where you can see that it would be doing something different. Yet, it is worded in such a way that the people that do not know that there is something very spiritual and very loving and open and caring inside of there, are going to use the analogous terms to hate and justify killing. That's something I still struggle to wrap my head around, that people at the time that knew the template, that knew this, were putting it in the culture in a way that gave permission to do certain things that were acceptable at that time. It just lets us know what was acceptable at that time. Whew. So anyway, my point here is, I think when I'm doing Genesis, that there's a lot of stuff in there that they're not superfluous, they're purposeful, but they're not purposeful for the template, they're purposeful for the ark, the carrying case, the population. That's what's going to make it go. It needs to be richer than the simple template. And it has to fit with their mindset, their culture, their people, their things. We look at it historically later and go, wow, it's true. These places were really there. That's when they wrote the story. But it's on the template. You can tell it's not true because the template is the core structure of the teaching. Extracting that template is a little difficult. At any rate, I wanted to say that. I'm going to make this a standalone video right here. I'm going to post this, but I'm going to add it to another video later, because as I'm going through and doing Genesis and I'm trying to extract everything, we're never really discussing this part. This is important. The carrying case is incredibly important to understand what it is and what it's doing, so we know how to extract the template from it. The more we know, the more we know. The more we know, the more we can know. There you go. All right. All right. We'll love one another. I'll see you in the next video.